But this is what we're reading tonight. This is where we find out that, yes, I can read. This is my proof copy of In Vineyard Veritas. I am Clancy Nacht. I am one of the authors. And I see Thursday Euclid there in the chat, adding more light and whatnot. And this is a I think maybe it's just the camera goes out of focus. So this is a cozy romance with bisexual and trans protagonists. And it's really fun. And it's very sweet and very cute. And one of the few books that we have that are, it's a cozy mystery with a romance subplot. And one of the few that I could probably read all the way through online without getting in trouble, that we've written anyway. So, yeah. So here it is. It's available in paperback or ebook, and right now it is free on it's free on Amazon in the ebook version. And I may have to in future try to do this with the ebook version because I forgot I can't see anymore. I'm old and I have to I guess I could just take my glasses off. So I'm gonna try to read a couple chapters. These are very short chapters. Just see how this feels, if it's weird. And I think it's already weird, but I'm pretty weird, so that's okay. I've never read aloud to anyone. No, I guess I have in high school. All right, well, this is a great time to do it. Just right on YouTube. If I'd realized retirement was going to be so hectic, I wouldn't have bothered. Geraldine Thorn fluffed her wavy red and gold bob until it achieved a proper beach or lake tousledness. Looking effortless was exhausting. When she was a programmer, she could wear what she wanted, but since selling out her shares of her profitable startup 3 years ago, she found herself on a nonstop circuit of charitable functions and activism. It was like being a trophy wife without the husband. She turned her gaze from her deep coral wrap maxi dress to her assistant, Cleo Quinn. Cleo should be the trophy wife. Instead, she was a lovely +1. Their relationship was better than a marriage. Where am I going again? There's a Friends of Nature auction in Dallas. You RSVP'd 3 months ago. Toffee Halston will be there, and I know you love outbidding her. Cleo was the master of persuasion. Toffee Halston called out Gerry's plump upper arms at a charity function last summer. And while Gerry wasn't the pettiest person, Cleo encouraged Gerry's naughtier instincts. I've already arranged the hotel, and it shouldn't be the worst. You can do this for the endangered sea turtles. Tipping her head to the side and opening her brown eyes wider in open plea, Cleo offered an ingratiating little smile. She was, unfortunately for Gerry, endearing. So, as to be sea turtles and revenge, that barely seemed worth leaving her modern, breezy lake home. She could send money and be done with it, but the honor of her biceps were at stake, and that might be worth 3 hours in the car. Meow. Gerry knelt to scratch under her lynx point oriental short hair mix Zev's chin. Yes, darling, of course you're coming. You can't expect me to take on Toffee on my own, can you? Zev purred and paced under Gerry's fingers. She'd been planning to add a shawl to her sleeveless dress, but clearly the occasion called for her to go fully armed, so to speak. Cleo, are you joining me? Before Cleo could answer, Gerry's phone buzzed. It sat next to Cleo, so Gerry gestured for her to answer. With a quick wink, Cleo took the phone and went into full assistant mode. She slid the green icon to the right with a fuchsia talon and then tapped the speaker button. Good morning. You've reached Geraldine Thorn's assistant. This is Cleo. How may I help you? Sometimes Cleo's husky, breathy, and androgynous voice gave people pause, but this time the speaker piped up immediately. I need to talk to Miss Thorn, please. It would be better if I spoke to her directly. This is Lieutenant Connor Klaus with the Aguelo County Police Department. Thank you for calling, Lieutenant Klaus. Could you give me an idea what this is about? Cleo shot Gerry a concerned look. Gerry had spent many childhood summers in Aguelo County at her favorite aunt's vineyard near the small artist colony of Kitsch, Texas. It's about Tilda Thorn. My information shows Geraldine is her next of kin. Do you know if that's correct? Yes, that's correct. I'm here. Gerry got up and crossed to Cleo. She put her hand on Cleo's shoulder for support. Getting a call from the police next to kin question didn't usually portend anything good. Is she all right? Miss Thorn? Lieutenant Klaus waited for her verbal confirmation, and then he sighed. I'm sorry to be calling you like this, Miss Thorn, but your aunt was found by the housekeeper early this morning. She'd fallen in the bath, and there was nothing we could do for her. Are you able to come out to Kitsch and handle her final arrangements? I will figure out this accent one day. Cleo made a soft gut punch sound and covered Gerry's hand with her own larger one in sympathy. Gerry sat down next to Cleo, taking a moment to let the words sink in. It seemed impossible that her spry, wisecracking aunt would have died in the bathtub. Not alone, anyway. Yes, of course, I'm a couple hours away. Should I go to the house? Do I need to sleep in the tub? Her thoughts were no more organized than her words. Zev jumped from the floor into her lap, purring as he rubbed his cheeks against her chin, attuned to her drop in mood. Yes, Miss Thorn, slept in the tub. She's with the medical examiner now. We don't believe there's any foul play, so if you'd like to stay at her house while you settle her final affairs, that'd be all right. I'll give you my number and you can contact me when you're here. Lieutenant Klaus read off his number and extension. Cleo noted it, which was good because Gerry was still in shock. But that doesn't make any sense. Maybe she was kidding herself because of the suddenness. Who hadn't had a scary slip in the tub? Despite how much Aunt Tilda loomed large in Gerry's mind, she was merely a human after all. I would like the results of the autopsy couriered over when they're available. I'm heading to her house. Before Lieutenant Klaus could object, Gerry pressed the red button on the phone, cutting him off. Toffee will have to wait. Looks like we're headed to Kitsch. She stood and headed to her bedroom to pack. Come along, Zev. All right. Chapter 2. Are you guys ready for chapter 2? I need to start doing accents, right? Or if this is painful, I should stop, right? Like, how long have I been on? Let me see. We'll just do one more chapter, I think. Unless it ends like so cliffhangery, we have to do it. No more accents? You don't want any more accents? You're a writer. Come on, what are you saying? All right, chapter 2. While driving her Galaxy Blue Metallic Hybrid Audi to her aunt's, Gerry made phone calls to family, mostly Gerry's cousins, to let them know Tilda had passed. They expressed their condolences, but none sounded as if they were going to make the trip to Texas. One thing Gerry knew was that her aunt was beloved in Kitsch, and whatever they held the funeral would overflow with well-wishers. How long had it been since she'd been to the Thorn Vineyard? It felt like years, even though the drive was so familiar that she was on autopilot until she made the turn onto the long path to the house beside the vineyard. The lights were on inside the purple and magenta gingerbread two-story. A weathered classic Ford pickup was parked out front, probably Carol Ann Rodriguez, Tilda's artsy best friend who knew everything happening in Kitsch. She was probably the first person the cleaning lady called when Tilda was found, even before the police. Well, Zev, we're here. He purred from his tan, soft side carrier. Gerry undid her seatbelt, then Zev's. She wasn't even out of the car when Carol Ann ran to the drive to greet her. "Oh, Geraldine!" Carol Ann's tanned, stricken face held more creases than Gerry remembered. But she was the same Carol Ann, dressed in an ancient flowy sundress patterned with big, faded blue flowers, like me. She held out her arms and picked her way across the gravel to Gerry's side before drawing her into an embrace. "I'm so glad you're here. It's awful. It's just awful." After a hug, she released Gerry and looked down at Zev's carrier. "Oh, goodness. Hello there, sweet little sweetheart." Carol Ann adored animals. She had a couple of dogs of her own, as well as several grown children. Aunt Tilda was so different from Carol Ann, and yet the two had been inseparable for decades. When Carol Ann looked up from Zev's carrier, her dark eyes gleamed with unshed tears. "I can't believe it, Gerry. This is just the timing. It's so wrong." Tilda had so much zest, and she was a force of nature, you know. Dropping her voice to a bare whisper, she added, "I don't trust that boyfriend. You make the police do one of those talk screens they talk about on TV?" She had a boyfriend? Tilda was an attractive, vital woman. She hadn't mentioned dating anyone when they spoke on the phone. Not that Tilda had been a lonely heart. She always had plenty of gentlemen callers, just none seemed to go to the trouble of just none that she seemed to go to the trouble of calling a boyfriend. "I asked for an autopsy. What makes you worry about the timing?" Gerry started toward the wide porch. The boards creaked in that familiar way as she went up the steps. She half expected to see Tilda sitting on the porch swing, drinking a spiked lemonade. It seemed impossible to be here without her. "Autopsy, good. That's good. But her boyfriend? Oh, Lord, yes, Trey, that boy. He can't be more than 25. She gave him a job at the Vineyard, but Gerry, he's not the brightest bulb in the Christmas lights." Tilda was just, I can't say she was in love, but surely she did enjoy his company, if you know what I mean. Carol Ann's bronze cheeks flushed, and she cleared her throat. I know you're a grown woman, but it hardly seems right to be talking to you about that." 25? That was young enough to be Gerry's son if she had kids, which she hadn't, but oh my. Stepping ahead of Gerry, Carol Ann opened the plain windowed side door and let them into the kitchen. "I got some iced tea made. Let's have a glass and talk. It seems wrong to." "It's none of my business. It's just not, but it's Tilda's business." She paused, narrowing her gaze, and whispered, "But it sure is funny business." Gerry took a moment to herself, carrying her bag to the base of the stairs. She set Zev's carrier next to it and then bent down to let him explore. "You think this Trey may have had something to do with her accident? Do we know where he is?" Gerry didn't want to think about any of the fun business. Tilda was her aunt, after all. Deep down, Gerry was impressed. "He's been staying in that little Airstream your aunt hooked up out by the garage. He didn't have a reliable car to get to and from the vineyard, so Tilda let him stay. You ask me, she just wanted to be able to send him home after their visit without feeling bad." Carol Ann's cheeks blazed anew, despite her position with her face wedged in the open fridge. "Lord, I shouldn't say things like this about my Tilda. She can't even..." A sharp sniff signaled Carol Ann was choking back emotion. She took a moment, but then she busied herself with the big, stained plastic tea pitcher Aunt Tilda had been using since at least the 80s. "He showed up here this morning. They often had breakfast together, I gather, and I had to tell him. But he didn't take it as hard as I expected." Carol Ann fussed in the cabinets, taking down 2 of the iced tea glasses, and then pulled a paring knife from the drawer to cut into lime wedges. Staying busy seemed to be all that held her together. Gerry left her to it, taking a seat at the solid wooden missionary table that she'd had so many breakfasts at. She looked out the front window in the direction of the Airstream, wondering if Trey had remained. "Lieutenant Klaus said a cleaning lady found Tilda. Do you know who that cleaning lady was?" Yeah. Allie Kempner. She's a housekeeper. This big house is getting a bit too much for Tilda to handle on her own, so she hired someone to come in on weekdays to do the cleaning and shopping." Carol Ann's lower lip jutted as she wrestled her expression back under control and carried the tea to the table. Though she placed a glass at the seat opposite Gerry's, she returned to the pantry and rifled through the shelves. Couldn't have anything to do with Allie. Carol Ann's pleasant, faintly accented voice was muffled by the pantry, but Gerry heard her determination clearly. She was putting her kids on the bus this morning, getting them ready for school before that. Not to mention, with Tilda gone, she's out of a job. Lord knows what'll happen to her. There's not a lot of work here in Kitsch these days. Allie might have seen something that she doesn't realize, or there may be something that she didn't say if the police already started calling this an accident. I'd just like to check in with her and make sure that she knows about the... Gerry couldn't bring herself to say funeral yet. Maybe her obsession with the circumstances of Tilda's passing was her way of avoiding a breakdown. I'll make sure she's got money to tide her over until she can find something else. I'd like to know if she saw Trey. It was possible that slip in the tub had been accidental. Perhaps Trey had been over and didn't know what to do. Gerry was sure he couldn't be part of her will, and certainly Tilda would have mentioned him if things were that serious. Maybe. Carol Ann returned to the wood table with a tin of homemade fudge from the chocolatier on Main Street and a brown paper bag of what appeared to be Aunt Tilda's favorite ginger snaps. Carol Ann set them out and joined Gerry at the table with a sigh, as if giving up her attempt to keep ahead of her emotions. Allie's number and Trey's too are on the fridge. You know, Lieutenant Klaus is on this case, Gerry. If anything shows up in the autopsy, he'll pursue the matter. Right now, you need to find the will and arrange a funeral. Carol Ann shoved a piece of fudge in her mouth, blinking rapidly as if tears might fall at any moment. With her mouth full, she added, "I'll help in any way I can." As long as she hasn't made any changes to her will, her will is on file with mine. There was that word again. The worst kind of F word. Funeral. It was so final. Just that morning, her biggest worry was telling off Toffee at a silly auction. Gerry cut a large piece of fudge for herself and closed her eyes, savoring it, blinking rapidly. You're right. I just don't want it to be real. I should call Adam. Adam Flores was an old friend from when Gerry had been a little goth rebel girl, and being friends with a spooky funeral home teen made her extra cool. She'd heard through the grapevine that he'd inherited the business. At least she wouldn't be dealing with a total stranger. She reached out and put her hand on Carol Ann's. It's good to see you, even if this isn't how I would have wanted a visit to go. Carol Ann nodded and flipped her hand over to grasp Gerry's. She gave it a little squeeze and then grabbed another piece of fudge. Let's eat our feelings. Tilda's loss leaves a gaping void. I vote we fill it with chocolate. All right. I think I'm going to stop there. That was a good